name is Kel and I'm a therapist and educator with a special interest in eating disorders. Come on in, take a seat, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe for bite-sized content across the mental health and eating disorder spectrum. I've titled today's video, The Normalisation of Food as a Problem, which sounds like a little bit of a fancy topic for what I want to talk about today, but I didn't know how else to summarise it. I've been having what feels like a little bit of a unique and unusual experience of late. Here in the UK, the COVID-19 restrictions for the most part have now lifted, and as a result I've found myself having conversations with people that I don't directly know, those superficial kind of conversations where you kind of make some pleasantries and maybe in that conversation comes up, and what do you do for a living, or what's your job? And I typically reply to that question by saying, oh, I'm an eating disorder therapist, or I'm a counsellor working with those with eating disorders, or just simply I work with eating disorders. And I have heard what I'm about to say before, but in these past few weeks, I've heard it so much more frequently than ever before that it absolutely must mean something. So the way that people have been responding when I let them know what I do for a living is more often than not with statements such as, oh, I have a problem with food. And then that's typically qualified with a little bit more of an explanation, such as, I eat too much chocolate, or I don't eat enough vegetables, or something to that effect. When I first started to get these responses from people, and I would hear the beginning couple of beats of that conversation, I would almost take a half step back into my kind of professional self and prepare to direct them to Beat the Eating Disorder charity or give them a little bit of information. And then I've quickly started to brush that aside when I realised that that isn't quite the direction that they were going in, or that doesn't seem to quite be the direction that they're going in. And I can't quite put my finger on what it is that's happening when people make these statements. Is this an indication that people know a little bit more about eating disorders, but only a little bit and maybe not enough? Is this an indication that they're trying to show me that they understand what it is that I'm saying that I work with as my job by mentioning what they understand eating disorders to be slightly and relating it to themselves? Are they showing me, oh, that's problems with food, right? Because if it is, I see that as a bit of a problem. It means that the education that we're putting out, the general public eating disorder education that we've definitely seen a little bit more of in the last couple of years because of the significant increase in prevalence of eating disorders during the pandemic, is not quite hitting the mark, because these folks are specifically and only talking to me about food behaviours. They're not talking to me about mental health struggles or the distress. They're talking specifically about that food behaviour, and typically about eating too much bad food or not enough good food, that kind of moral attribution to food. And that's got me thinking that maybe this response that I'm getting has got something to do with this apparent war on obesity and the whole set of policies that the UK government is currently rolling out in relation to tackling obesity. None of which I support, by the way, might I add here. But in rolling out those policies, what we're hearing and seeing is conversations about the need to eat in certain ways, eat certain types of food, eat certain quantities of food. And we're also seeing things like calories coming on menus soon in the UK. And people potentially taking on board some of those messages, but without really thinking about them in any great depth, but so much so that they realise that they're not engaging in the way the government wants us to be engaging in terms of food behaviours, and therefore that what they're doing must therefore be seen to be a problem, and thus essentially normalising problems with food where potentially they don't even exist, because it's quite okay to regularly eat snack foods or sometimes eat more or less or differently, and actually the projection of what we're given in the UK about what constitutes healthy eating is quite a way off of the mark as to what I would consider healthy eating, or as to what by any stretch of the imagination might be normal eating or average eating. And I find this pretty concerning because we know that poor behaviours in relation to food and feeling the need to restrict food because of moral reasonings or a sense of weight control is going to be putting people at risk of developing eating disorders. So although I don't think any of these people, hopefully, are not struggling with eating disorders, it feels like we might be edging more and more in that direction because of this normalisation of food as a problem, that it's either right or it's wrong, and we're in that black and white place that I've talked about in other videos being a problem. Thinking about just about anything in very black and white ways can be a problem, and we need as people to be able to navigate the grey areas, particularly in factors so important to our lives as food and our physical health. So I'm finding it interesting but also concerning that this is how people are responding to me when I tell them what I do for a living. And I don't really have a definitive answer as to why I'm experiencing this. I have all of these thoughts, but I suppose really I'm putting this out here on YouTube a little bit today with a question mark after it, with maybe some space in the comments section to talk about this topic a little bit and to what might be happening in our society, what's being reflected in these conversations that I'm having with people, because it feels to me like there is something happening. So please, if you're watching this video and you have any feelings or reactions to what it is I've shared today, consider leaving them in the comments. If they feel very personal and not something that you would want to share with your name attached to it, I also welcome emails from those of you watching the videos, and there's a specific email address in the description box below. But I think we have to figure this out, because either this is indication of lack of education, or this is indication of normalisation of the problem with food, or maybe worst case scenario, it's also indication that more and more people are edging towards struggling with food behaviours, both as an eating disorder and in a less concrete way as well. And I don't want to see this get any worse than it already is in our society. It feels like it's something to be concerned about. So I'm going to leave this video here for this week. Until next time, be kind, be curious, and be yourself.